Welcome back to another edition of the Optimize Weekly Market Recap. I'm David Ferreira, Portfolio Manager with Optimize Wealth Management. And as always for today's recap, we'll take a look at last week's activity in the markets, as well as what we're watching for in the week ahead. US markets were up last week with major US indices back at all-time highs. The Nasdaq continued its stellar performance, up almost 2.4% in the past week. The S&P 500 was up 1.32%, the Dow up 29 basis points, and as US indices were lifted by positive sentiment around potential for rate cuts from the Fed. In Canada, the TSX was off 1.18% on the week, given a slight pullback in oil prices. Looking at sector performance, tech and healthcare were the strongest performers, while utility and energy were the weakest. Looking at the events from this past week, we had our first rate cut in Canada after much anticipation. The quarter-point cut from the Bank of Canada marks the first round of interest rate cuts in the G7. And later in the week, the European Central Bank also followed suit with a quarter-point cut. US and Canadian jobs figures were released, with the US adding 272,000 jobs, Canada adding 27,000 jobs. Although these figures beat expectations, unemployment ticked up slightly, which actually increased the likelihood of a Fed rate cut in the coming months. Looking at manufacturing data in the US, PMI data showed that the US service sector came in at 53.8% in May, surpassing the consensus estimate of 50.7%. And any reading above 50% indicates an expansion of service activities, with higher business activity and faster new order growth express continued strength in the sector. Looking ahead, US inflation figures are set to be released on Wednesday, with markets watching for the core figure to continue cooling towards the Fed's target. Also on Wednesday, the US Fed is expected to release their interest rate decision, and while a cut is not expected, investors will be paying close attention to the Fed's forward guidance in light of the rate cuts in Canada and the Eurozone. After the slate of economic excitement in Canada this past week, it's set to be a quiet week, with manufacturing and wholesale data due on Friday. And on the earnings calendar, we have Oracle, Broadcom, and Adobe set to report. Another eventful week in the markets with more to come in the week ahead. As always, thank you for watching, and see you soon.